Hi, so today we're going to be talking about character designs. Well, I mean, starting on them, sort of. I've already actually done some work on it. This is for a new comic that I'm working on. I'm going to try to be documenting the process of making this comic on the YouTube channel. So, this is the main character, the lead character from this book that I'm working on called Leap M. It's written by Doug Wood. It's going to be published by Action Lab sometime in the foreseeable future. Who knows with what's going on in comics and distribution, which is a topic that I hopefully will never get into. But we're going to make the book anyways, and I'm excited about it. So I've been starting to work on character designs. The book happens, our lead character goes from being younger to being quite old. So starting with Tommy Lee Jones as a sort of beginning point. So I pulled some reference and printed out a sheet that for these initial sketches I was working off of. But I've kind of figured out, I think, the shapes for the old version of our lead character, Wilbur. So I'm going to talk, the other thing that I've been trying to do while I'm going through the process of making character sketches is messing around with sort of inking tools and what I'm going to try to ink the book with. When I first start sketching, I almost always start with one of these Pentel stylos. They're great for sketchbooks, and I just like using them. I don't necessarily make the best drawings with them, but I think you get like a really lively line, and I don't like to start in pencil because you can kind of iterate forever and erase. And I smudge everything because I'm a lefty, so I always go over everything, and I just get graphite everywhere. It's not great. So I started with Tommy Lee Jones, and then started kind of, going off reference and sort of going by memory. Here I'm using a nib and a brush. This one is a brush and a ruling pen. This is a ruling pen. Kind of fun to use. I don't trust myself with them, so this is all with the ruling pen, nib, ruling pen, and I'm just kind of having fun. I'm not trying to necessarily make great drawings. I'm just trying to draw. I think this is sort of where I'm headed towards with the design. The other thing is we got to figure out a young version of this character. So it's a little bit too full. When we kind of start with him in the script, he's pretty... Well, he goes through the ringer throughout the story, but he's supposed to be a little bit more worse off. So going with something a little bit more anemic here. So what I figured I'd do is try to do a quick drawing of both versions side by side. One of the things I've been doing when I pencil is I kind of, especially for sketches, again, I'm not looking for perfect. I'm looking to kind of figure out, trying to get better at breaking down into very sort of shapes. And so trying to put some urgency behind everything. And one of the things that he's got a much bigger, he's got more forehead because he's got less hair. So that's gonna be our old. And then on this side, do our young. So this is, one of the things that I think to make him look a little bit more, he's really strung out, is accentuate the cheekbones. He's gonna have much thicker eyebrows. And a lot more hair. Okay. So I think this is all I need to kind of go by for the purposes of these sketches. So, what I'll do next is I have my ink over here to the left. This is, I don't actually know what's in this ink bottle. It started out as this, I don't know, FW ink, but it's probably not that anymore. So, let's do some inking. Working with a Hunt 102 for the most part. I like using them because you get a nice, varied line width, and I've been using them for forever. I grew up in the town next to where the Kubert School is. And so, growing up, they had a Saturday morning sketch class, which is taught by Fernando Ruiz, for the most part, but also Ben Dale taught there as well. Both great cartoonists. And I think that's probably where I first sort of encountered the Hunt 102. I'm gonna have to get better at figuring out how to film these things because the tripod's sort of in my sight. This paper isn't really the best for this nib. It scratches it up a little bit too much. But I'm trying to go through all my sketchbooks. So, the thing that I'm doing here, just kind of laying down a bit more detail, and I don't know how final these designs are going to be, but one of the things that I'll do is I'm going to go back in with a brush and I'll lay in shadows. So let's do the old ink, the old version next. You know, I find that I do most of my drawing in ink, and I like it that way. You don't, you know, my style tends to be loose, for lack of a better word. But, you know, I'm trying to get a little bit more refined, but I've been reading a lot of Klaus Janson work lately. You know, either him inking people like Frank Miller or John Romita Jr., or just, you know, Klaus by himself. And I really, you know, he doesn't really ink like this anymore, but the way that he would ink himself and others, that very thin line, and then followed very closely with these very thick, bold lines, was just it's a very cool look, and it had a lot of expressiveness, you know, compared to, you know, I think that a lot of people are making, you know, are obsessed with the sort of having this really clean drawing, and, you know, he obviously is, Klaus as an inker is obviously very capable of making extremely clean pieces, but I always liked that rougher tone. So anyway, so I've been looking at that work a lot, and I'll probably try to highlight some of that stuff on this channel as well. So I think that we're gonna go with this. So the next thing I'll do is I'm going to come in with a brush. I have a whole tray of basically like a rolly tray that I got from IKEA next to my desk that I have all of my tools sitting in, you know, at the ready. So Let's go in with the brush, and the story's it's a noir story, so I want to go pretty heavy on the shadows. It's weird because the ink comes out really nicely from the nib, but I think I watered it down too much because it's a little bit ink washy when I apply it. It's not quite a pure black. So I'm going to have to leave the bottle open for a bit. Now I always have this problem where once I start adding shadows in, I don't really know where to stop sometimes. I'm not a great at finding that happy medium. I do find it a little bit easier to start, some people like to make things up, but I find it a lot easier to start a character from at least the starting from like a pre-existing person. It just gives it, the amount of shapes and faces that you can carry in your own brain is limited, and just think it's it lends a little bit more variety than if I were just kind of coming up with something on my own. So let's do this one. I'm going to try and light them the same. This is a Raphael brush. I got it off of Amazon. I wish that like places like the Michaels and the Dick Blicks carried better brushes. Like they don't really carry any brushes that I've found are particularly good for inking. Usually when I am home visiting my folks, I will go over to the Kubert Art School and pick up supplies. But actually it worked out that before this I was up there and I was able to stock up, because otherwise I might be running out. So there we go. Got a couple of character design. The character design for our lead for this comic, and I think the old version here needs some more. Okay, so here were the final headshots that we did. So here are these guys. Also started a little bit on the villain, but we'll save him for later. This is a sort of quick full body illustration that I did of Wilbur. one of my thoughts here is that his wardrobe's pretty terrible. He gets basically out of prison at a certain point, and he has no possessions except for what he went in with as a young man. So I'm thinking that one of the things that we'll do is just keep his clothes pretty simple, and as if he's still 30-year-old man at the most. The other thing that I'm working on is one of the scenes in the book occurs. It's a flashback scene. Wilbur's a veteran, and he's going to be serving in Afghanistan, basically. The book's supposed to be set in the not too distant future, but my thought was to sort of change the uniforms up a little bit, the sort of the gear and the kit, and just make it just slightly future. I don't want to go too far. One of the main things I wanted to change was just the helmets, because I really hate drawing the real ones. And so I'm working on a turnaround to hopefully keep things consistent, and I'll do some more of these and probably design the other two main characters that figure into there's 3 characters that figure into the sequence, and so I'll have to design those as well, and just figure them out, because it's a relatively long sequence in the book, and it happens pretty early on, so I want to make sure I map that out. One of the other things that we'll work on when we get to it is drawing an actual map of the area that the scene's going to take place in, because it's an action scene, and so I find that it's really important for me to understand when I'm working on action, like spatially where everything is. It makes laying out the page a lot easier, and it helps for me to know if I know where everything is, then hopefully that will translate to the reader being able to know where everything is. So this is some character designs for Leap M. Like I said, it's a book that's going to be coming out from Action Labs. I'll be making more videos going through my process of making the book, and talking about inspirations and things like that. So of course, if you like this video, please click the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications, and leave a comment if you liked it. Let me know what you'd like to see more of, what you'd like me to kind of go into detail about. I'm going to show off some pages from some other things I've worked on. I'll talk about some things I'm looking at for inspiration as well. So stay tuned, and make sure to subscribe. Thank you.